So in terms of just that volcano ride itself, I don't remember if it was your Strava title or Tyler's Strava title about like it was like impossible or was one of the hardest rides you've ever done. Was that hyperbole or was it actually one of the hardest climbs or
Oh,
rides that you've ever
100%.
Yeah.
Without hesitation. Yeah, I mean, when you do something, so I was hoping to do the official like world's hardest hill climb because, I'm on Strava and people really look at that and I'm like, well, I know my form is good and I know that if I do this segment, if I have a good run at it, I have a very good likelihood of getting this Strava segment. The guy took it as a pro track racer, very, very solid Olympic rider, but he's also not a climber. I'm really good at the high elevation stuff. And so I'm thinking like, okay, well, we can do that or we can do the longer one. And then once we get to this like last, 2 hours of the climb, I'll go really hard and see if I can take the upper half. If I can take the upper segment, then, then I could prove that if I wanted to, I could have taken the other segment. But dude, by the time I got there, I mean, I was like just smashed and all I could think about was trying to keep moving. And I picked it up a little bit, like at 9,000 to 10,000 feet. Like I, kind of started to drive the pace and give it a good hard push, but just couldn't I couldn't go any harder. I mean, I was just pegged, just trying to keep the gear turning.
So it took you, about 9.5 hours to do the climb itself?
Yeah, the actual elapsed time was like 9:38 or something like that. I had to do the math on it because the Garmin I was running died. These things, if you're running navigation on them, don't last super long.
What was the time that you guys were kind of shooting for? Were you thinking kind of that similar time frame of 9.5 hours, or were you kind of planning?
No. I mean, I was thinking 7 hours. I mean, honestly, in my head, I was like, all right, guys are totally blowing this out of proportion, and we're talking to Alex Candelario, which you probably saw in the documentary.
Yeah.
And Alex, I mean, the guy's silver medal at Road National Championships and Olympic caliber cyclist. And he's like, oh yeah, it should take like 12 hours. And I'm like, dude, you are so just janking our chain, There's just no way that a 60-mile ride is going to take us 12 hours. I mean, we're not walking. Well, let's just say there's some things that really became crystal clear about this thing and started to make a hell of a lot of sense. I mean, it's just insane. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe it, Trevor. We hit like this first pitch, and I've not since Costa Rica. There's only one other place in the world, and I race mountain bikes. So when you race mountain bikes, you will climb stuff that is just more mind-boggling. Racing in the Alps, the Pyrenees, in Costa Rica, you'll climb stuff that they won't pave. There's just logging roads and just like wicked steep stuff. So usually I really, usually dig the steep stuff. I have no problem with it, but this was ridiculous. I mean, the pitches of 40%. I mean, you put a suitcase on it and it just starts to slide down the hill type of pitch. And you know how video doesn't do it justice.
Oh,
and even in the video, it did look steep. It actually did look steep in the video.
Yeah.
I was pretty flabbergasted because we descended in the dark, and all you see is Alex engages the four-wheel drive. You see all these like scratch marks on the guardrail, and I'm like, the ground is like scraped up on the switchbacks from the bottoms of cars, and the pavement's really, really rough. And I'm on like a 40C. I'm running like these 40C, what do you call them? Schwalbe G1s, and I'm like slipping out. I'm running a knobby 40C tire, and like the rear wheel is like spinning on the concrete. I mean, it's a rough way to start a big climb like that. And then we got into the sort of jungle section. So very, very slow going. And you have sort of these challenges, you know, like these hurdles. And I think Vegan Cyclist, his video is really good at breaking it down. He kind of had these graphics for each section. But then, yeah, you have the Waipio Valley climb. Then you've got like, you know, a flat section of pavement, you know, where it's 2%, you know, no big deal. But you're going and going and going. Then you've got the like, you know, that jungle, and then you've got the grasslands, and then you've got the rubble, which is almost like a single track, like a double track Jeep road with all these like big rocks in it, which comes out really well. It does convey actually pretty well in the video. And then you've got the volcanic area where it's like above tree line. It's all like blackened and orange and just really freaky lunar landscape. But the thing, to your point, Trevor, about how this thing really accumulates, you know, and I started to think about it a little bit like in the week coming up to it. And I was like, wow, you know, running it like full gas, like, you know, averaging 265 watts at Leadville, like for 6 hours. I mean, that's like the record, all-time record at Leadville. And within a couple minutes of that, yeah, I mean, that's really hard. I mean, you're just completely destroyed and you fall over in the grass afterward and have to recover because you're just, your tank is so empty. And then you add like Pikes Peak hill climb to that. And that's what you're looking at when you finish. I mean, when I turned that corner and you looked up and you could just see the switchbacks and the snow cap just like 2 hours, you know, up the hill. I mean, that is a mind bender. I mean, you turn that corner, you feel like you just finished Leadville 100 and you turn the corner and you look up and you go, your just heart sinks and you're like, it's going to be rough.